Radio Rocketman special episode coming in super hot.
In super hot with me, Luigi, as always, the incredible co-host. Are you ready, Luigi? We're gonna cover the debate that went on for 5 hours between 3 academics and an Italian, Luigi. One of your own.
It sounds a little bit like a joke, like 3 academics and an Italian walk into a debate room. But sure, let's do it.
To debate the highest of debate subjects, I think, the Israel-Palestine debate. So to have the Italian in there, I think, gives a good representation.
All right, let's explain what exactly we're talking about. So about a week ago, we had a big debate between 3 historians and a streamer. And it was about Israel-Palestine, and it was a 5-hour debate. So obviously, we're only gonna show you the good parts. But
we've made notes.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty revealing. Quite interesting. Not for like it's not worth 5 hours, but it is worth half an hour with us breaking it down.
Very well put. And just for the shits and giggles, I thought we will start with this compilation. Every time Norman Finkelstein calls Destiny by his name.
Your name, please?
Stephen Bonnell.
Okay. Mr. Bonnell, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Borelli.
I'm going to believe that's not controversial.
Mr. Bonnell,
literally,
Mr. Borelli, Mr. Borelli, with all due respect, the problem, Mr. Morelli, is you don't know the English language. So no due respect, Mr. Bonnell, to see the misrepresentations that Mr. Bonnell, Mr. Borelli,
I don't want to read one.
Mr. Borelli, please don't teach me about the English language.
Do you read the case?
It
is a highly special intent.
I'm going to ask you again.
Yes.
Please stop displaying your imbecility.
Okay, I'm sorry if you think the declaration of the judge is imbecile.
Don't put on public display that you're a moron.
Display on camera, you're putting yours in.
Mr. Bruschetti, what are you doing, Mr. Bruschetti?
Mr. Borelli, you are such a fantastical imbecile that my innards writhe at the mere sound of your vocal cords.
Mr. Prosciutto, how dare you?
Mr. Gorgonzola, enough.
Let's listen to it.
Just a little bit more.
I read the case around 4 times.
They just don't show genocidal intent. The Israeli Minister of Finance on the 8th of October. War. Well, you do know how to pronounce my name. Are you pronouncing it Italian?
I made you into an Italian all the time.
It may be meaningless.
He identifies as Italian at this point.
Mr.
Borelli. It's like, it's Bonell.
One of us. Yeah.
There's like an outside chance Norman Finkelstein was doing this on purpose just to piss Destiny off.
There is an outside chance. But he has so much information in his brain, Luigi, sorry, that there's also a high possibility that he just couldn't remember the one time that Mr. Borelli offered his name.
Yeah, by the way, Mr. Borelli, I've seen a lot of compilations of his on this subject, and like either he's really like a few years ago he didn't know who Yasser Arafat was. Like he looks like a classic American kid that's never like followed news outside of the US.
I can't really tell you, Luigi, about I haven't seen anything outside. I can only provide info on what I've seen with this debate. We will go through.
Which wasn't that encouraging.
No.
Don't follow Destiny, kids. It's not cool.
You, Mr. Bonnell. Okay, Mr. Bonnell.
Who got the strip before 67?
Mr. Bonnell. Don't change the subject.
The actual
Destiny should talk about
that was the one. That was the one, Lee. Mr. Bonnell.
You are such a fantastic moron, Mr. Bruschetti.
By the way, nobody burns like Finkelstein, right? What the fuck? My professor's on fire.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most combative, let's say, professors I've seen.
Yeah, definitely. You could give that to him. Should we move on to the actual debate? So we can
Sure,
go through
sure.
that. I think Luigi. I mean, I didn't really summarize what the topics were. There are some timestamps by Lex who conducted the debate. Not sure how accurate they are themselves. But yeah, I thought the first part, which was the part I had seen before we did our last episode, was focused on how much transfer, basically the expulsion of Arabs, how integral that part of it to Zion it was to Zionist ideology. And I mean, they went pretty deep with it. Mostly the three academics were talking about through that part. I think one way to look at it, Luigi, is the results and what has actually happened. And I think nobody could deny that transfer has clearly happened.
Yeah, it happened
I
half a century ago. It was half a century ago. It was pretty
I mean,
drastic. Still continuing to this day. We
yeah,
should
yeah.
add. And
To this day, very well put. To this day, and I thought Benny kept arguing that transfer expulsion happened because the Arabs were hostile. I mean, I'm not a scholar on this subject, but I think you should look at what has actually happened. And Norm basically kept making the argument using Benny's own quotes. So, I mean, in a sense, Benny made the argument implicitly, even though he now denies it. I mean, that's what Norm kept doing during that hour. I was quoting Benny through his own books that Norm had read and made clear to everybody. And Benny just kept denying or just kept being like, whatever. I said that a long time ago. That was what I gathered from the first part.
mhm, mhm.
The second part, I thought, not all of it, but some of it was the ridiculous notion that whether Palestinians were responsible for the Holocaust. I thought that was very weird, that part. And the third part, I named it fuck international law.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really accurate summation of the third part. Honestly, at some point, Finkelstein starts quoting like Amnesty International. Benny Morris, the Israeli historian, basically starts saying nobody cares about Amnesty International. He
Nobody
ends up
cares
saying
about the law.
nobody
Fuck the
cares.
law.
Nobody cares about international law. That's not how the world works. And I mean, on an elementary level, I do agree with him. Like what international law says and what happens in reality are two totally different things. But there's a fucking reason we have those laws written, right?
Yeah, and I've got the timestamps where I think Rabbani, who is an excellent orator and arguing his point, that it was unbelievable as well. And there's a point where he explains it to him that what you're arguing for is the law of the jungle. And I think Norm interjects that, don't complain then about 7th October. I find what Norm said then far less offensive than what Mr. Fradelli kept going on about.
Fratelli, Mr. Prosciutto. By the way, we're making
Mr.
so much.
Mozzarella. Yeah.
We're making so much fun of Destiny because, like, in this debate, it's three people that have spent their entire lives studying this subject. Between the three of them, there's probably like 10 or 20 books written on this subject. And then you just toss in a streamer that started
Yeah.
reading about this like a few days ago, more by the looks of things. And yeah, it makes for some pretty comedic material, if I might say.
The only piece of info I can give you that I know about Destiny outside of this situation is that I think he thought that Erdogan was the president of Israel or something. Not that far ago. That's what I heard.
I think it's the same compilation I saw. It was like a compilation of him streaming and like looking at politicians like Erdogan and being like, "Who's that?" You're like,
The
dude,
president of Namibia.
yeah, like
The Sultan of the South.
maybe if you don't know the great Sultan of Turkey, maybe just maybe like stick to
Stay out
video
of Middle
games.
East.
Yeah,
Middle
like
East. I
stay
say,
out of Middle East politics, maybe.
yeah, they're particularly tricky, the Middle Eastern politics. Everybody hates everybody. It's a mess. So we
It's
go.
been a mess for a long time. Yeah, please.
Oof, yeah. Shall we start at 150.05, somewhere around?
50:05.
try and get that
150.05
as
on the
close
radio
as
station.
yes, that is great, Luigi. I've got just pause, sorry, Luigi. And we've got here that Rabbani, just to give a little bit of context, claimed that the British supported the Zionist state of Israel because of their imperial interests, basically. I mean,
Which
not
sounds
a
accurate.
scholar. Yes,
Yeah.
sounds plausible, definitely. Or states often act in their imperial material interests, whatever. And actually, yeah, let's listen.
The British, the Zionist movement began way before the British supported the Zionist movement for decades. In 1917, the British jumped in and issued the Balfour Declaration supporting the emergence of a Jewish national home in Palestine, which most people understood to mean eventual Jewish statehood in Palestine. Most people understood that in Britain and in Israel, among the Zionists and among the Arabs. But the British declared the Balfour Declaration, or issued the Balfour Declaration, not only because of imperial self-interest, and this is what you're basically saying. They had the imperial interests, a buffer state which would protect the Suez Canal from the east. The British also were motivated by idealism. And this, incidentally, is how Balfour described the reasoning behind issuing the declaration. And he said, the Western world, Western Christendom, owes the Jews a great debt, both for giving the world and the West, if you like, values, social values as embodied in the Bible, social justice and all sorts of other things. And the Christian world owes the Jews because it persecuted them for 2,000 years.
Luigi.
This debt,
Sure.
I mean, basically, Morris claims that Balfour was motivated by idealism. It was to help
Yeah,
them.
yeah. The British Empire was like, of course, we owe them a great debt, good sir.
Yeah, good sir, we have seen so much against these poor people. The whole.
And this is the guy that understands how the world works. Right? That's the guy that makes the argument a few hours later. That's not how the world works. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And just if we can get to Rabbani's response.
Speaking of propaganda,
nice.
I find it simply impossible to accept that Balfour, who, as British Prime Minister in 1905, was the chief sponsor of the Aliens Act, which was specifically...
He changed his mind.
Which was specifically designed to keep persecuted Eastern European Jews out of the streets of the UK, and who was...
He changed his mind. Like he passed laws to keep Eastern European Jews out of Britain.
Yes, a rapid anti-Semitic law specifically targeted against Jews, and then he changed his mind. That's the argumentation we're going with. I thought it was very telling.
He found the Lord, George. Like, it's so simple.
I thought it was pretty telling even at the start of the debate. Yeah, so weaknesses are starting to be revealed on the Israeli side. I mean, with Benny's argument, he changed his mind. That's what we're going with. Okay. Yeah. Then I go.
By the way, this was Benny Morris's argument. Like, so the entire debate starts with Finkelstein sort of reading quotes from Benny Morris's early books and trying to basically argue that here's what you wrote 40 years ago. You're basically arguing my point. And the other guy's like, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. And that was during before now, where they were discussing whether the expulsion of Arabs was intrinsic to the Zionist project. Yes, that was happening then. If we can go to 156.46, they make a good point here.
Also, one point, you mentioned Hajamin and Hosseini during entirely legitimate. But what I would also point out is that you had a Zionist organization, the Lehi.
300 people.
300 people, one of whom happened to become an Israeli prime minister, an Israeli foreign minister, a speaker of Israeli parliament.
Sorry, Lizzie. I mean, we've gotten to the Palestinians to be blamed for the Holocaust territory of the debate, and they've started going on about the Grand Mufti and how anti-Semitic he was, and it was countered by Rabbani being like, do you know that this guy who tried to make a pact with the Nazis turned out was a leader of that faction, of that extreme faction, definitely, but then he turned out he became 20 years later, he was the prime minister of the fucking country. So I mean, two can play that game of ascribing blame for the Holocaust and alliances with Nazis. So yeah, sorry, Luigi,
Yeah. Do you want to continue with this, or should we skip forward?
Could we go to 159:34?
Then, of all the crimes you want to ascribe to the Palestinian people, trying to blame them directly, indirectly, or indirectly 3 times removed for the Nazi Holocaust is completely lunatic.
Hold on. Wait, he's not blaming them for the Holocaust. He's saying that from the perspective, no. He's saying that from the perspective of Jews in the region, Palestinians would have been part of the region. That is exactly
You have not read him.
what he said.
I've read him.
You read him, you don't understand him. He said right here.
Believe me, I'm a lot more literate than you, Mr. Borelli.
I'm gonna believe the guy that
You
wrote the
read
stuff.
what Wikipedia says.
That's great.
I
And you
read
don't even
Kenny
speak
Morris.
Hebrew. You call yourself an Israeli historian.
I
We're
just-
all
I
on a
just-
different ground.
I just
But the
want, if I
reality
can
is-
just respond.
Well, no. I'm just saying that there were two tricks. That's fine. There were 2 tricks that are being played here that I think is interesting. One is you guys claim that the Leahy was trying to forge an alliance with Nazi Germany because of a shared ideology.
That's what they said.
Yeah, but hold on. No, wait. No. It's about what you said. You brought that up to imply that Zionism must be inexorably linked to.
No, I'm
you're not-
sorry.
we're-
Yeah,
No, you're
yeah,
words
we
to
got
my
it,
mouth.
Luigi.
Wait, what the?
Yeah.
I mean, did you see Mr. Morelli here? I mean, he comes out with a gem. I mean, he literally puts words in people's mouths and argues a hypothetical point that nobody has made. The reason they brought up the Leahy and the guy who was leader of that extremist group and then became a prime minister of Israel was because Benny brought up the Mufti and his allegiances and his anti-Semitism and allegiances with the Nazis. That's why they brought it up. They didn't bring it to inexorably, to intrinsically link Zionism with Nazis. That's not what they were doing. So I think Mr. Morelli is clearly out of his element. He's arguing hypotheticals, dude. It's just, what did he say? What matters is what you said. What does that fucking mean, dude?
Yeah, he's trying to play the gotcha game, basically.
Yeah,
It's a 5-hour debate. People might say something that can be misconstrued some way, and the moment you do that, it's like,
exactly. Gotcha. Yeah, and can we go now to 20504?
Mr. Risotto.
And over here we've got Finkelstein. Basically, at this point, smacks down the Palestinians blamed for the Holocaust argument by explaining that the US didn't let Jews in either, but they aren't blamed for the Holocaust. You can listen to it. So very, very succinctly put.
In Palestine,
Well,
that's
again,
what they did.
Again,
And they knew that the
was
Jews were
Palestine-
being persecuted in Europe.
was Palestine the only spot of land on
Basically,
earth?
Yes, basically that was the
What-
problem. The Jews couldn't emigrate.
What about your great friends in Britain, the architects of the Balfour Declaration?
Oh my God.
What about your great? Yeah.
You know,
The Balfour Declaration, the architects. Like, he's making fun of him for the previous point.
Rabbani is really good, yeah. Just you know.
weren't happy to take in Jews, and the Americans
And
weren't happy to take
why
in Jews.
and why are Palestinians who were not Europeans, who had zero role in the rise of Nazism, who had no relation to any of this, why are they somehow uniquely responsible for
Because
what
they were-
happened in
they
Europe
were
and
helping
uniquely
to close the
culpable?
only safe haven for Jews. That's
Oh,
all.
really? The United States wasn't a potential safe haven. The only one was Palestine.
At the
The
time,
United States had no room
no,
from
it
the
did have
Atlantic
room.
to
It
Pacific
did have
for
room.
Jews.
It did have room, but it didn't
So
want
that
Jews.
wasn't the
But it didn't
only
want Jews.
safe haven.
This is
But
something
shouldn't you be focusing your anger and
America
outrage?
should be blamed for not letting Jews in during the
They
30s
are
and 40s.
blamed, but nobody blames them for the Holocaust.
Well, indirectly.
Exactly.
Wow,
I
that
mean-
was a smackdown. Yeah, exactly.
Smackdown. I mean, that's it.
You
What?
can be blamed for not getting refugees.
Of
You're not gonna-
course.
Yeah.
But there will still be a Holocaust by the Nazis.
Yeah. What else do we have?
1811, please. 1811. What we have here?
11.
Oh yeah, let's listen just to that exchange
Mr. Bruschetti.
between Mr. Bucanelli and yeah.
Value to words.
Yes, we've said that.
When
You
I,
value them.
when
Stop
I
repeating them
was,
so
yeah,
much.
Mr. Brunel, please slow down the speech and attempt to listen. When I was explicitly asked by Pierce Morgan, I said there can be no question that Hamas committed atrocities
I've heard this.
on
Yes.
October 7th. If you want me to pin down a number I can't do that.
And ask you to
but
point
I
out a
may-
number. You can listen to
You
what I'm
mean
saying.
ask me?
No, my question is,
Okay.
I'll ask a very precise
Sorry
question.
to you because
Excuse
you're
me.
not.
It's
If
a
I
very,
under-
it's a very easy
If I
question.
understood your question correctly.
My question is, do you think the majority of the people that were killed on
Yes.
October 7th, civilians, were killed by Hamas?
Yes.
Or are we subscribing to the idea that the IDF killed hundreds,
No,
400 or
but-
500
No,
of the
but
crossfire?
let me explain why that's.
Yeah, I mean,
What are we even discussing here? Like, I'm curious to see what Rabbani is gonna say because like this makes no sense even.
basically what he's trying to imply, and it's a very weird point, Luigi, he's trying to imply that Rabbani and Finkelstein are conspiracy theorists who don't believe that Hamas murdered anybody on October 7th. And I think
Jesus.
And I
Okay.
think Rabbani's response is that Hamas definitely killed a clear majority of civilians. And I think it's a perfectly
It's
acceptable answer.
yeah, indisputable even. Like
And,
they're
uh, and then the demeanor, dude. I mean, to have these guys with immense academic knowledge on the subject across you, I mean, and you keep acting like so disrespectfully, so dismissively. I mean, none of the other three are behaving like this, right? I mean, I can't.
obviously, I mean, not only do they have not only have they studied the subject for decades more than
Even the
Destiny.
pro-Israeli guy isn't behaving like that. He's an actual
Exactly.
academic, even if he does propaganda for Israel.
No, and I mean, at some basic level, like all of these guys, like have 30 years on you. On that basis alone, like be a little bit more respectful,
Yeah.
especially when you don't know shit about the subject.
I mean,
Anyway.
I guess that's why they're mere academics and not debate lords, Luigi.
Debate lords. I think that Destiny has been on a few shows recently, like Piers Morgan and so on. He basically decided that he's the the new debate master. He's like S tier in debates. I can debate anyone.
Anyone. I'm the Ben Shapiro of the center.
Yeah. This is let's show, this is what 100 what was it 145 IQ.
Yeah, it was the
How much is Ben
IQ
Shapiro?
club.
Yeah, that's exactly what the 145 IQ club looks like.
And I mean, just let me tell you, at one point, this dude sitting here on a debate about Israel-Palestine with his let me know self-branded jacket over there with the fucking D on it, has the nerve to accuse Finkelstein of profiting of the war while in his shitty little branded jacket, dude. Wow.
I mean, the fact that he accused Finkelstein of profiting from this war. By the way, if you want to profit from this mess, you take the Israeli side. Yeah,
sorry
you
to tell you, folks.
Yeah, I mean, when you try to be unbiased, and even more when you try to support the Palestinian side because you think there's injustice there, there's no money to be made. In fact, like it's the opposite. You're gonna get cancelled from whatever university you are working at.
They're canceling professors. They're canceling academics. They're canceling artists. They're canceling. They're not canceling them for being pro-Israel.
Takes balls to be objective on this subject. And by the way, I think the only reason Norman Finkelstein has been able to do that for so long is because he is Jewish. If you're not Jewish, you can't criticize the subject anymore. It's
definitely much trickier.
It's off limits. It's almost off limits. I mean, especially in academic circles, or when you have a tenured position in a university.
As far as I'm aware, Luigi, Cornel West didn't get his tenureship at Harvard because he supported Palestine.
Precisely. And Cornel West has been there for an infinity.
He's a landmark in the institution, in academic circles in the United States. And they still
Brother George, we founded this university, Brother George.
And they still wouldn't give him the tenure. And then that guy has the schmack, has the fucking nerve to accuse people of profiting of the war by standing with the Palestinian side. Jesus Christ.
Just weak attacks from an ill-prepared 30-year-old streamer.
I think, again, the debate lord tactics, just trying to ascribe hypothetical motives to your opponent and just argue against those. It's just strawmanning freely.
It's the Rabbi Shmuley approach. It's like attack your opponent, not the subject that you are discussing. It's so simple.
And if you can attack his arguments, you can make up your own arguments that he's hypothetically making. You don't have to attack what he's actually telling you. You can just say, but what matters is what what you really mean when you say
yeah,
that.
Okay, what else do you have timestamps for us?
Should we go to 23333?
Wow, is that the almost
And-
number of the beast?
Half of it.
Half the beast.
They're arguing right here, sorry, Luigi, just to give a little bit of context. They're arguing about the atrocities Israel committed in Lebanon in 82 over
Mhm.
here.
Yeah.
And just I want to, yeah.
Killed.
Yeah?
Finkelstein is going to read out. He's going to explain himself.
Okay.
Overwhelmingly civilians, the biggest bloodletting until the current Gaza genocide. Biggest bloodletting, I would say, I can't think of a single mainstream account that remotely approximates what you just said. So, leaving aside, I can name the books, voluminous, huge volumes. I'll just take one example. Now, you will remember, because I think you served in Lebanon in 82, am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you will remember that Dov Yarmia kept a war diary. So, with your permission, allow me to describe what he wrote during his diary. So, he writes, the war machine of the IDF is galloping and trampling over the conquered territory, demonstrating a total insensitivity to the fate of the Arabs who are found in its path. A PLO-run hospital suffered a direct hit. Thousands of refugees are returning to the city. When they arrive at their homes, many of which have been destroyed or damaged, you hear their cries of pain and their howls over the deaths of their loved ones. The air is permeated with the smell
All right, I
of
think we-
corpses. Destruction and
Yeah,
death
no,
are
just-
continuing.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
We're gonna go to Destiny's response, and then could we go to 239?
Mr. Firelli.
Mr. Firenze. Go to 239,
Mr.
43.
Spaghetti. 239.40.
Yeah, to 239, 43. And you remember what Finkelstein laid out, right?
Of course.
The description of the atrocities. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Firelli.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah, we have the esteemed Mr. Firelli's response.
From what the quote was from. It sounds cold to say it, but war is tragic and civilians die. There is no war that this has not happened in the history of all of humankind. The statement that Israel might take...
Let's send this asshole off to a war. See whether the statistics hold up.
care not to target civilians is not incompatible with a diary entry from someone who said they saw civilians getting killed. I think that sometimes...
And I mean, that's my point. I mean, we're going from the streets reeked of corpses and the hospitals were ravaged. You know,
To normalizing it, to saying, every war has casualties. Okay, is every war like
that doesn't mean they wanted to
40%
kill.
children casualties? Is that every war?
That doesn't mean they wanted to kill innocents too. The streets were just reeking of innocents, of dead innocents. And then I've got the best line in the debate, Luigi, 24508.
Mr. Tortellini.
Yeah, when they killed the 4 kids in the
They believed.
yeah,
they
I
were
know they believed it,
Hamas.
even though they were
You know
diminutive
that,
size.
you know
Even though they were
that
diminutive
angle, you don't see the size.
Yeah, no, they saw
You
the
don't
size.
see the
Let's
size.
leave the size.
Oh, I
Here.
know what he's quoting
Here,
from, but
yeah.
you've lied about this particular instance in the past. Those kids weren't just on the beaches, as often stated in articles. Those kids were literally coming out of a previously identified Hamas compound that they had operated from. They literally did.
Mr. Borelli, with all due respect, you're such a fantastic moron. It's terrifying. That war was filled with journalists. There were tens, scores of journalists. That was an old fisherman's shack. What are you talking about? It's so painful.
Hamas
It's so painful.
You're implying
Mr. Borelli.
Mr. Fettuccini.
Mr. Cappuccino. What the fuck? I thought that was the best line in the debate. You're
That
such a
actually sums up the debate.
fantastical moron, Mr. Borelli. That
Mr.
my
Borelli.
innards writhe at the mere sound of your vocal cords.
Mr.
Should we go?
Mr. Focaccia, what are you doing in this debate?
Mr. Bruschetta. Should we go to 259.16, please?
259.
And then I think over here, a fantastic retort by Norm.
Target civilians, they
Okay.
would have killed many,
No,
many
you
more.
see,
The fact is
Mar-
that they don't
Professor
deliberately
Morris-
target civilians.
Professor Morris, for a
And you
his,
don't understand.
for a historian, I don't
Don't
want to
understand how it
understand
works.
Israeli society.
Don't
You want to know the
understand how it
truth? I
works.
don't want to. I don't want to get inside their heads.
That's the problem.
90% of
A
Israel.
good, a good, a good, a good
90
historian,
90
good historian
yeah.
tries to get into the heads of
There's a limit.
the
There's
various
a limit.
protagonists.
There's a limit. When
That's what a good
90%,
historian does.
when 90% of Israelis think that Israel's using enough or too little force in Gaza, I don't want to get inside that head. 40% think that Israel's using insufficient force in Gaza. I don't want to get inside that head. I don't want to get inside the head of people who think they're using insufficient force
Historians
against
must
the
understand.
population,
No.
against the population, half of which is children. I don't
Wow.
want to get inside
Yeah.
that head.
Yeah. That sums up the spirit of the debate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
even call it a debate. It was as one-sided as the quote-unquote war is.
Yeah, but on the
At
other
least in my
side.
opinion. Yeah, on the other side. Yeah.
It's the small victories.
I mean,
We got
victories
to-
or not, the people are not fucking coming back. So
Oh, yes. Could we go to 3:10:10, where Mr. Balotelli acts like a moron again?
Sure, possibly, maybe even a lower level than even an indictment. So plausibility is an incredibly low.
yeah, sorry, some context. They're basically
Yeah.
discussing the recent International Court of Justice decision, which was that the case of genocide against Israel has merit. So there's plausible genocide happening, and therefore the court decided to take on the case. And they're basically discussing how much gravitas the court deciding there is merit to this case
Yes.
holds.
Two things. One, the International Court of Justice, the Supreme Court justices, don't have infinite time. So by actually agreeing to go to trial for this case, it indicates there's something here. We're not going to waste our time. And number two, I thought it was very funny because before that, the pro-Israeli side was just arguing. I'm going to call them the anti-Palestinian side because I don't consider myself anti-Israeli, to be honest with you, in the sense that I don't want to eliminate 6 million Palestinians or something. But the anti-Palestinian side, before the court had rendered the decision, was like, they're never going to rule in favor of it. After they rule in favor of the decision to hold the hearing, to hold the trial, they immediately switched to, I didn't really mean anything, the decision. It was just, it's just plausibility. They just, any schmuck with a fucking folder full of notes could have gone to the Supreme Court justice to say yes.
They basically downplayed the hell out of that decision. Now, to be fair, there's no concrete decision, but as you pointed out,
Yes.
the mere fact that the court said, there's smoke here, I'm going to investigate, that carries some importance.
Definitely. You shouldn't dismiss that wholesale as Mr. Balotelli here is doing. Should we just let's listen a little bit more?
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
Number one. Number two, if you actually go through and you read the complaint that South Africa filed,
Wow.
I would say
He read it,
that
folks.
You go through the quotes and you even follow through to the source of the quotes. The misrepresentation that South Africa does and their case about all of these horrendous quotes, in my opinion, borders on criminal.
Well, 16 ICJ judges disagree.
That's fine if 16 ICJ judges disagree, but I'm going to give.
Confident.
Wow. I mean,
Wow.
that was my point.
Distraction.
I mean. And I mean, lol, I mean, does he really...
Yeah, I'm Mr. Ravioli. I understand international law better than 16 Supreme Court justices on the International Court of Justice.
Luigi, does he really think that they didn't look at the context of the quotes that they were given by
That's
South
okay,
Africa?
George. He disagrees, dude.
Well,
He disagrees. Like the world spins around destiny.
Yeah, in his extremely humble opinion.
Yeah.
So we go.
And according to the depth of his infinite knowledge on
Yes,
on
on
the
international law.
Yeah.
International, I would say. That's
Yeah.
his specialty. Can we get to 31800, please? I've got another good line. We'll see what it is, I'll remember.
Days of the proceedings to determine whether South Africa's allegations of genocide are well-founded. They're not well-founded. They're not even well-founded. The court isn't. You said that plausible was a high standard. It is absolutely not. It is a misrepresentation of the strength of the case against Israel, just like the majority of the quotes they have in this case are. And also, you said it was an extremely well-founded case. They spend like 1/4 of all of the quotations, some even pulled from the Goldstone report, they try to actually deal with the intent part. Which is, by the way, I think you guys, I don't know if you use the phrase, the dolus specialis, that the intentional part of genocide.
Sorry, I don't know that term.
I think it's called dolus specialis. It's the most
No.
important part.
Wow,
It's ravioli carbonara.
He read one term in Latin. It's like I'm gonna throw that into a PR Smart. And like
Legend.
the experts on the table are like, I've never heard of that before.
He's a legend.
Proving these special, there's a highly special intent to commit genocide. It's possible that Israel could.
That's mens rea.
No.
They should prove
The
that
mens
that's
rea.
mistake.
Yes, I understand the state of mind, but for genocide, there is. It's called dolus specialis. It's a highly special intent. Did you read the case?
Yeah.
It is
Mr.
a highly
Pirelli,
special intent.
I'm
to be
gonna
convicted
ask you
of
again.
genocide. Yes.
Please stop displaying your imbecility.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Moron. At least have
Oh, yeah, that's enough. That's enough.
Mr. Tagliatelli, just shut up.
Mr. Carbonara, what the fuck are you going on about? Can we go to 34108, please?
By the way, I should add, like, for
Yes.
people that have never seen Norman Finkelstein debating, that's not how he usually acts. Like, he's
Oh, yeah,
usually
not at all.
extremely respectful. That's
Oh,
why
no.
we're making such a big fuss out of this, because it's
yeah,
very
I
out of
mean-
character.
I mean, he hasn't been faced, I think, with such a joke before.
Can you give me the time again, please, George?
34108, please, Luigi. Yeah, we're skipping a bit. And I've got-
deal that was present.
Sorry, yes. I've got Mr. Cuccinelli here. I've got clearly out of his element with his bullet points and no actual knowledge outside of them. And just watch how Rabbani immediately rebukes whatever he's going his bullet points.
At least at the end of the Taba summit, I think in terms of what Israel, I think, had the appetite to give and what the Palestinians would have gotten would have definitely been the most agreeable between the two parties. I don't know if in 73, I'm not sure if the appetite would have ever been there for the Arab states to negotiate alongside the Palestinians. I know that in Jordan, there was no love for the Palestinians after, 1970, after Black September. I know that Sadat had no love for the Palestinians due to their association with the Muslim Brotherhood, attempted assassinations in Egypt.
Sorry, which? PLO and the Muslim Brotherhood?
Sadat was upset because there were attempted assassinations by people an assassination. It was a personal friend of his, Yusuf al-Sibai. I can't pronounce that. He was assassinated.
Who wrote those notes?
Killed by the Abu
Who wrote those notes? I want to know that. Who wrote those notes?
Mr.
Sorry,
Carpaccio.
it wasn't an assassination. It was an assassination. When the fuck was out that was then? Yeah. Mr. Carpaccio. Carry on. Yes.
It's all organizations.
Sure,
It was
yeah.
not part of
Admittedly,
PLO,
yeah,
had
he says as
nothing
much,
to do
belongs to the
with
Center Group, not the
Brotherhood.
PLO directly, but I think that
Not
was a history
directly.
of-
Oh, yeah. Go on.
It was an indirect assassination on George.
By
It was
Mr.
not-
Carpaccio. Yeah.
of the Palestinians sometimes fighting with their neighboring states that were hosting them if they weren't getting the political concessions they wanted. The assassination of the Jordanian king in 51 might be another example of that in Jordan. It feels like over a long period of time, it feels like the Palestinians have been kind of told from the neighboring Arab states that if they just continue to enact violence, whether in Israel or abroad, that eventually a state will materialize somehow. I don't think it's gotten them any closer to a state. If anything, I think it's taken them farther and farther and farther away from one. And I think as long as the hyperbolic language is continually employed internationally, the idea that Israel is committing a genocide, the idea that there is an apartheid, the idea that they live in a concentration camp, all of these words, I think, further the narrative for the Palestinians that Israel is an evil state that needs to be dismantled. I mean,
does anybody really disagree with all of that? I mean, in the sense that
Yeah, and I mean, what is he
there's a reason
arguing?
we are using there's a reason we are
What is
using
he
the words
arguing, Luigi?
apartheid. There's a reason we are using the
Of
phrases open
course,
air
and
prison. I mean, they
honestly
didn't show
now,
up yesterday.
and honestly now, what does he want? He wants us to mollycoddle Israel, and then they're gonna stop fucking treating the Palestinians badly because
He's basically saying we're demonizing, or that
did
the
that
international
happen with South
community.
Africa? Did that happen with South Africa? Did we just stop, caring about it, and then they just stopped doing it because they were like, nah, let's stop doing it. What the fuck is this? It's just ridiculous.
Mr.
Should we
Parmigiano.
should we go please
Yeah,
to
please.
349.27, which is basically where Mr. Botticelli gets confronted basically by Norm's analysis of what happened during the Camp David negotiations. And I just want us to note how he responds, because I think he's been arguing about this for a while. So how does he respond? He's got him right there. He gives him the account of what has happened, and let's see how this plays out.
There are the Clinton parameters in December 2000, and then there are negotiations in Taba in Egypt in 2001. Those are the three phases. Now, I have studied the record probably to the point of insanity, because there are so many details you have to master.
I'll vouch for that. The insanity part. Yeah.
I actually,
I'm also mad.
There is one extensive record from that whole period from 2000 to, you could say, 2007. And that is what came to be called the Palestine Papers, which are about 15,000 pages of all the records of the negotiations. I have read through all of them, every single page. And this is what I find. If you look at Shlomo Ben Ami's book, which I have with me, Prophets Without Honor, it's his last book. He says, going into Camp David, that means July, going into Camp David, July 2000, he said the Israelis were willing to not return, but will withdraw from relinquish 92% of the West Bank.
Ben Ami was at Camp David.
Yeah, then he was at Taba. He was also at Camp David. Israel wanted to keep all the major settlement blocks. It wanted to keep roughly 8% of the West Bank. They were allowing for, you put it at 84 to 90% in your books. They put it at roughly 92%. Israel was willing to give up.
How you calculate.
Yeah, that was another.
Depends what stage Camp David, because there were 2 weeks.
I'll get to that.
Proposals changed during.
So Israel wants to keep all the major settlement blocks.
Means the border area of the West Bank.
Well, not the border. We have Ariel. We have Ma'ale Adumim. We have, as Condoleezza Rice called Ariel. She said it was a dagger into the heart of the West Bank. So they want to keep 8% of the land. They want to keep the settlement blocks. They want to keep 80% of the settlers. They will not budge an inch on the question of refugees. To quote Ehud Barak in the article he co-authored with you in the New York Review of Books, we will accept, and I think the quote's accurate, no moral, legal, or historical responsibility for what happened to the refugees. So forget about even allowing refugees to return. We accept no moral, legal, or historical responsibility for the refugees. And on Jerusalem, they wanted to keep large parts of Jerusalem. Now, how do we judge who is reasonable and who is not? Ben Ami says, I think the Israeli offer was reasonable. That's how he sees it. But what is the standard of reasonable? My standard is What does international law say? International law says the settlements are illegal. Israel wants to keep all the settlement blocks. 15 judges, all 15, in the Wall decision in 2004, in July 2004, all 15 judges, including the American judge Bergenthal, ruled the settlements are illegal under international law. They want to keep 80% of the settlers. Under international law, all the settlers are illegal in the West Bank. They want to keep large parts of East Jerusalem. But under international law, East Jerusalem is occupied Palestinian territory. That's what the international...
Not Palestinian,
That's...
because
excuse
there was
me.
no Palestine.
Okay.
There's
Under...
never been a
Wow.
Palestinian state.
No,
How could it be Palestinian?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, I think
and
that,
even that, I mean, yeah. By the way, notice Mr. Vermicelli suddenly out of arguments. While
obviously, Clara,
Norm is explaining, going through what actually was offered to the Palestinians and why, through the prism of international law, that may not have been reasonable in any way or sense.
yeah. And they are ultimately going to end up arguing on the Israeli side that international law doesn't really apply in reality, at least, and that
And I
nobody
mean, and you
cares
see
at the end of
that
the day.
there never was a Palestine anyway. Fuck their self-determination. We have bigger guns. We have the backing of the world superpower. Just come out and say it, dickhead. Stop
Might is,
pussyfooting. I
Mike
mean,
is
tell
right.
us
That's the
exactly.
argument.
Tell us where you stand. And you see, sorry, just a little bit more, because you'll see that Mr. Linguini is going to abandon his previous arguments that Palestinians were given everything at Camp David and, were just like, no. And instead, he's going to pick up from the esteemed historian's contribution, fuck international law.
Yeah.
And he's going to say that international law is more like guidance and less like, rules. I know Norm talks really slow, doesn't he? But
Yeah.
every word packs a punch, people.
And I mean, not even joking. You can listen to the guy at 1.75 speed, and he sounds like a normal human being.
But
No,
don't listen to Mr. Stracciatella at 1.75
yeah,
because
there is just a word salad. It's like, "Ah, I'm not Italian.
let's find
It's
Destiny's response if we can.
it's a great debate, but unfortunately,
It's
we
a
don't have
5-hour
control of it.
debate,
Yeah.
people.
To a level that is never going to be satisfied. For instance, you can throw that ICJ opinion all you want. It was an advisory opinion. That came in 2004. Have Palestinians gained more or less land since that 2004 advisory opinion was issued?
So what would your standard be then?
Both sides have to have a delegation that confronts each other, and they assess the realistic conditions on the ground, and they try to figure out within the confines of international law, and then what both sides are reasonable for. But like, for instance, this statement of like full retreat from the West Bank, what is it, 400,000 settlers? How many settlers live on the West Bank now?
750,000.
Yeah.
Luigi, sorry.
Yeah.
750,000, and I saw a credible plan by Lord Cameron's advisor that with about 200,000 of them relocating, you could make it work. It's not impossible. And you wouldn't have to relocate all 750,000. By the way, the guy doesn't even know how many legal settlers are in
Obviously,
fucking...
his
What the
argument is
fuck?
those people have been settled there, even though it's against international law. Nobody's gonna pressure Israel into
Fuck
doing anything
international
about it.
law.
Yeah. That ultimately that's the argument. I mean, international law is a guideline.
If you can, Luigi, just at 40141, and I've got where Rabbani explains it to Mr. Stracciatella like he's 4 years old.
There's only one way to resolve this, and that is through direct bilateral negotiation.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. So
Or ideally, but
I've taken over your house. Okay. You're not going to go to the
Sorry. Look at Finkelstein trying to hold back a smile, knowing the argument that the Rabban is about to make.
Yeah.
Please.
They become,
The laws of only of limited value. So you come over and sit in what is now my living room that used to be your living room, and we negotiate. The problem there is that you're not going to get anything unless I agree to it.
That's it is a tiny problem.
It's a tiny,
It's a small problem.
dude, the Palestinians should just negotiate with the Israelis, dude. I'm
Both
sure the
sides should
Israelis.
have a delegation, and we're gonna talk it out, George. We're gonna hold hands, drink tea, sing kumbaya. It's gonna work out until the point where we have to actually, do stuff.
Yeah, agree to something. Yeah, should we move on to what have I got here? 40349. It's a little bit after.
The PLO recognize Israel. Okay, we demanded that they did this, and they did it, but it's meaningless.
And they never changed their charter, the PLO. You may remember that.
In fact, in
They
19...
supposedly abrogated the old charter, but never came up with a new one.
No,
So
but
there's no new charter.
but in 1996...
And Farouk Kaddoumi said, of course, the old charter is still in force.
Yes. But the point is, the Palestinians' demands are constantly made of them. And when they accede to those demands, they're then told, actually, what you did is meaningless. So here's a new set of demands. I mean, it's like a hamster.
There's no new set of demands.
It's like a hamster.
Let me tell you what. Let me tell you what.
That will be told, if you run fast enough, you'll get out of the cage.
No. The bottom line is that Israel would like a Palestinian Sadat. It wants the Palestinians. Listen. Just let me
really
finish.
A worst case scenario.
Okay, let me just because they shot Sadat. But anyhow, the Israelis want
For good reason.
want the Palestinians. Israelis want the Palestinians to actually accept the legitimacy of the state of Israel and the Zionist project, and then live side by side with them in two states. That's what the Israelis. I don't even know.
And what is the
I don't
formal
even know if that's
position?
true today.
And what is the
Because there
formal
may be-
position of this Israeli government?
No, I'm saying I don't know if it exists.
Okay,
today,
its
because I'm
predecessor,
talking about
and its
previous-
predecessor,
I'm
and
talking
its
about-
predecessor. Come on.
That's what Israelis want. They want a change of psyche among the Palestinians. And
Wow.
that hasn't happened.
You're gonna change their psyche, and
I mean-
obviously you're gonna do that through constant bombing of their
And
houses,
it's
right?
insane because, okay, they recognize the Israeli state in whatever, the 80, whatever. And it was like, yeah, but they didn't actually mean it.
Yeah, in their hearts, they
In
didn't
their
mean
heart
it,
of hearts.
George.
So that's the benchmark now.
Deep inside, like they signed the agreement, deep inside, like it was half-assed, half-baked.
That's what Benny believes, yeah. That's how Benny formulates his opinions, yeah.
There won't be a Palestinian state.
Mouin,
They just won't be.
Mouin has an interesting point.
Forget international
Because
law.
I know you want to forget it, just like you want to forget the genocide charge. But I know you want to forget that.
Well, the Palestinians want to forget it too, and it doesn't suit them as well, right?
But here's the problem.
What?
And it's exactly the
What
problem.
What did Mr. Gorgonzola say here? That was
He's
weird.
basically saying that Palestinians want to forget international law when it doesn't suit them.
No, they constantly try to go through international law because they know that their treatment has been unjust.
Just throw it up.
Sorry, yeah, could we move on? Could we
Uh-huh.
go to 41700, please? We got two professors try to explain it to Mr. Gorgonzola like he's 4 years old.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like their kid, right? He
Yeah.
looks like the naughty kid that hasn't been paying attention in class.
He's
trying to, yeah.
He's got very high 15-year-old hormonal energy.
The negotiation with Israel ever happens there. And then when the international pressure is always, 67 borders, infinite right of return for refugees, and a total withdrawal of Israel from all these lands to even start negotiations, I just don't see realistically that on the Palestinian side, no negotiations are ever going to start in a place that Israel's willing to accept.
If you want to dismiss international law, that's fine, but then you have to do it consistently. You can't set standards for the Palestinians, but reject applying those standards to Israel. If we're going to have the law of the jungle, then we can all be beasts, and not only some of us. And I think
Basically.
So it's either
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, you can't lay down in a simpler manner to this fucking streamer boy so that he can understand
By the
what
way,
fuck
yeah.
international law means. Sorry, Luigi, yeah.
We are not giving the people a lot of context. Like it was a long debate until he said that.
Oh,
And
you have to
Destiny,
watch it. You have to
yeah,
watch the whole
Destiny was
thing.
being very inconsistent throughout the whole thing. And basically, he was arguing the opposite side of cherry picking facts while he was doing it at every step of the way. So, E minus for Mr. Mortatella.
Yeah. Can we go to 4:30:56? And we've got, it's just another encore of fuck the law from our big boys over this on this side of the aisle.
Wanted the settlements dismantled.
They
That
want
was
the settlements dismantled.
the settlements, the oil fields, and the airfield. They demanded all three back. You can't have.
What do you mean back? The airfields weren't there when the
Oh,
Egyptians were
okay,
there.
that's incorrect.
What's
You're incorrect.
The
They
airfields
built
were
an
built
airfield. The Israelis built an airfield in the occupied Sinai,
Yes.
and they wanted it back.
They didn't want it back. It wasn't theirs.
No, okay.
They wanted the territory
Okay.
in which the airfield
Okay.
Israel had built.
Okay.
What the hell is this guy arguing? Yeah, if you build an airfield and I want that land
In
back.
occupied territory.
Yeah, I probably want the airfield as well with the land, right? I mean,
So we go, actually, let's skip this. Let's go to 4:35:39, please. I've got Finkelstein lays down the law.
Blockade of Gaza and
Why is
Free-
it
free the
illegal? They were
hostages.
shooting rockets at Israel for 20 years.
Okay,
Why is that illegal to blockade Gaza?
He thinks
Why-
they're bottle rockets.
Why?
That's what he calls them. That's what
Why
he
is it
calls them.
illegal? I'll tell you why.
You don't rocket your
Okay,
neighbor. You
I'll
rocket
tell-
your
I'll tell-
neighbor,
I'll-
expect
I'll
consequences.
tell you why.
Expect
Then,
consequences.
but
Professor-
that works both ways.
Yes,
I know, I expect that.
Professor
Works
Morris,
both ways.
I'll tell you why. Because every human rights, humanitarian, and UN organization in the world
Irrelevant.
has said
You're not
said
They're
that
irrelevant.
the blockade
Nobody cares
is a
about
form of
amnesty.
is a form of
Nobody
collective
cares
punishment,
about
which is
amnesty.
illegal under
Forget
international law.
illegal. The word
You
illegal.
think a blockade?
You don't
which-
understand the way
okay,
the world works.
Yeah, and
These
and you
things are
think
irrelevant.
and you think
and by the way, I would argue that this part shows you who won the debate.
Yeah.
Because when one side resorts to fuck international law,
Fuck the
and
law. Yeah, fuck
you do understand
international law. Fuck
how the world
amnesty.
works. I mean, obviously,
You know who
international
has
law.
law, i.e. justice, by his side. I mean, obviously, when one guy is just granting like a fucking fuck the law, yeah, fuck the law.
Yeah.
Because about the law, breaking the law. You're not exactly the good guys, right?
Yeah, I'm afraid we're gonna have to wrap this up, George.
Let's go. We can do it. We can
Let's
do it.
go.
Can we get, yeah. Let's carry on.
confining, because that's the blockade.
Yes, you don't.
Confining
That's your
a million children, combining
That's the choice of
combining
Hamas.
combining
That's
a
Hamas'
million
choice.
children in what the Economist called
Okay.
a human rubbish heap.
The Economist
He-
supported Israel in this
Yeah.
war and continues
Okay.
to support Israel.
What International Committee of the Red Cross called a sinking ship, what the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights called a toxic slum. You think
It is a slum, of course it's a slum.
you think
But it's caused by
under
the Hamas.
international law, you think it's legitimate
Forget
to
the
con-
law.
Hey, I know you want to forget the law.
What
It's
about
the one
morality?
thing that
Forget
every
the law.
is
What about
it's
morality?
the Israeli fears the most.
What?
The law.
No,
As
no,
Luigi
no.
Wow.
said, I studied
I
international
was
law.
a pig
I
later.
oppose international law. Of course, you don't want to hear about the law.
It's got nothing
So,
to do with
hey,
anything.
okay.
It has nothing to do with anything. Yeah, I think that sums up the
Yeah.
debate.
Let's finish up with one final moment, Luigi. 4:45:52, where I think
Fuck
it's
hope.
which is I think it's the ultimate streamer mode. I think he went full streamer, Mr. Botticelli, at this point. Let's listen a little bit.
There are probably large numbers of Palestinian refugees who, once their rights are acknowledged, will find it exceptionally distasteful,
Canada.
exceptionally distasteful to have to live among the kind of sentiments that we've heard around this table today, to be quite frank. I mean, I was previously unfamiliar with you, and I watched one of your preparation videos. Very disconcerting stuff, I have to say. You were explaining 2 days ago in the discussion about apartheid and how absurd it was, that in your view, Jim Crow was not apartheid. Jim Crow was not apartheid. But Arab states not giving citizenship to Palestinian refugees is apartheid. That's what I meant with my earlier comment about white supremacy.
So my issue, that's great, the white supremacy comment.
And if
well, hold on, let me respond, okay? My issue is that I feel like we have jumped on this euphemistic treadmill, and I think that's part of the reason why this conflict will never get solved. Is because on one end, you've got a people who are now convinced internationally that they're victims of apartheid, genocide, concentration camp conditions, ethnic cleansing, they're forced to live in an open air.
Dude, I mean, he's listing all of the things that those people have had to endure, like literally.
Yeah, 100%. And he's gonna just a second, he's gonna say something unbelievable. Just in a second.
Prison, with all of these things that are stacked against them, all of these terms that are highly specific, that refer to very precise things. And then when people like you say that they should...
nothing less from someone who doesn't think Jim Crow is apartheid.
I don't know if
who does
because
think that Arab states
the problem
not
is you're
giving
morally loading. For you, apartheid is when racists do bad things.
No,
right?
no. There's a definition of apartheid.
That's great. But
There's a very clear definition.
There's a definition of apartheid, and you haven't read it, Mr. Mortadella.
Top-down racial domination enacted through top-down, like federal legislative policies or whatever, means that I don't know if Jim Crow would have qualified for apartheid. That doesn't make it any less. Excuse me, Finkelstein. I'm talking right now. Excuse me, Finkelstein. I'm talking.
Excuse me.
I don't know if it would have qualified as the crime of apartheid. Just like if Israel were to literally nuke the Gaza Strip and kill 2 million people, I don't know if that would qualify for the crime of genocide.
In your eyes, probably not.
Wow. Just like if Israel nuked the Gaza Strip, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't qualify as genocide, bro.
The crime of genocide. I think case closed, right? Streamer brain. I think Mr. Gorgonzola delivered.
Yeah. The only thing that saddens me is that we had to spend so long listening back to all of this absurdities, man.
Yeah, the Lord Emperor of what constitutes as a genocide.
Well, I mean, you can drop like a nuclear bomb on civilians. It doesn't qualify as genocide.
Mr. Borelli is not exactly convinced. Yeah.
For genocide, you need the proper procedures, right?
Yes.
You need it to be slow over time, methodical.
You need to convince Mr. Mortadella. How is this any different than whatever Ben Shapiro farts out every day? I don't know.
It's not that different. He's basically he's a slightly less intelligent version of Ben Shapiro. This guy's doing.
The way he carries himself, well, evidently it seems like it's a joke to him. But this ain't a joke, people. I mean, we make jokes, but it's not a joke to us.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. I had never seen a single stream of his.
Me neither.
And I never will at this point.
Don't think so either.
What I've heard from this debate is more than enough.
Not impressed. Yeah.
And yeah, on that cheerful note, George, I guess we have to call it a day.
Yes. Love to see you here, folks. Great session. See you again very soon.
Sayonara.
Bye-bye.